So we've got some really exciting news if you're into Digimon. Digimon Story Time Stranger is getting a large-scale expansion in 2027. And I think that's a big deal, not just because more content is coming, but because of the way people have responded to the game already. This isn't one of those situations where a publisher announces extra content and nobody really cares. This is a game that players have clearly connected with, and that's a big part of why this expansion feels so exciting. On top of that, the game has built up a 9.1 user score on Metacritic, which is seriously impressive. That kind of score tells you something. It tells you the people actually playing the game are having a great time with it. So in this video, I want to talk about why this upcoming expansion matters, why that 9.1 user score stands out so much, and why I think real player opinion usually gives you a better picture of a game than the big review outlets do, because when it comes to Digimon Story Time Stranger, the response from players says a lot, and honestly, it says more than a critic score ever could on its own. Let's start with the expansion itself. A large-scale expansion has officially been announced for 2027. And even though we don't know every detail yet, the wording alone tells you this is meant to be something meaningful. They're not calling it a small update. They're not treating it like a minor bit of DLC. They're making it clear this is a bigger piece of content, and that gives fans something real to look forward to. That matters because when developers put time and resources into a large expansion, it usually means they know the game has landed well, they know people care, they know there's demand for more, and with Time Stranger, that really does seem to be the case. This feels like a game that found its audience. It feels like a game that people didn't just play for a weekend and forget about. It feels like one of those games players got properly invested in, the kind where they put time into building teams, learning systems, getting attached to their Digimon, and just enjoying the overall experience. That kind of connection is important because it's often what separates a game that gets decent reviews from a game that people genuinely love. And that brings me to the Metacritic user score. A 9.1 is not a small thing. That is a huge score for any game, and especially for a Digimon RPG. It shows that a lot of players didn't just think the game was good. They thought it was great. They thought it was worth talking about. They thought it was worth recommending. And to me, that kind of reaction means a lot because user scores reflect something very direct. They reflect how people felt after spending real time with the game, not just an hour, not just enough time to write a quick review and move on. I'm talking about people who bought it, sat with it, played through it, and formed their own opinion based on the full experience. That matters. A critic can tell you whether a game seems polished. They can tell you whether it performs well, whether the systems make sense, whether the story works, whether it compares well to other games in the genre. That all has value. But regular players tell you something slightly different. They tell you whether the game stays with them. They tell you whether it was actually fun to come back to every day. They tell you whether the systems felt rewarding over time. They tell you whether the game made them care. And when a game ends up with a 9.1 user score, that usually means it connected with people in a real way. That's why I always think it's important to look beyond the big outlet reviews. I'm not saying critics have no value because they do, but I do think too many people let those reviews become the final word, and that can make you miss games that players are clearly getting a lot more out of. That happens all the time. A big outlet gives a game a decent score, maybe something in the high 70s or low 8s, and that becomes the headline. People glance at it and assume they know exactly what kind of game it is. Then later you find out the actual player base is much more positive than that score suggested. And that's exactly why I think user response matters so much here. With Digimon Story Time Stranger, the critics and the players are not saying exactly the same thing. The critic score says the game is good, the user score says people are loving it, and that difference is interesting. Because it suggests there's something about this game that really clicks once you spend proper time with it. Maybe it's the Digimon roster, maybe it's the team building, maybe it's the battles, maybe it's the atmosphere, maybe it's the story, maybe it's just that the game understands what Digimon fans actually want from a Digimon RPG. Whatever the exact reason is, the result is clear. Players have responded really well to it, and for me, that's always worth paying attention to. It's also why I think smaller, more independent reviewers are often more useful than the biggest corporate outlets. Not because they're magically right about everything, but because they're often closer to the community they're talking to. A big company review can give you a quick overview. An independent reviewer will often tell you what the game actually feels like after 10 hours, 20 hours, or 50 hours. They'll tell you where the game gets better. They'll tell you which parts drag, they'll tell you who the game is really for, and most importantly, they'll usually talk about it in a way that feels more grounded and less filtered through a general scoring system. That's why I think it's a mistake to rely only on the biggest outlets. You shouldn't ignore them completely, but you also shouldn't stop there. Look at what the players are saying, look at what people in the community are saying, look at independent reviewers who spend time with the genre and actually understand what fans care about. Because when you do that, you get a much more honest picture. And in the case of Digimon Story Time Stranger, that fuller picture looks very strong. The game clearly made a good impression on a lot of people, and when that happens, a big expansion announcement feels deserved. That's probably the part I like most about this news. This doesn't feel like random DLC being pushed out just because it can be. It feels more like the next step for a game that genuinely earned support, a game that found an audience, got people talking, and now gets the chance to grow even more. That's what fans want to see. You want to feel like the game you enjoyed actually mattered. You want to feel like the developers see the response and want to build on it. And when that happens, it creates momentum around the game and around the series as a whole. And for Digimon fans, that's especially nice to see, because Digimon has always had loyal fans, but when it comes to games, it hasn't always had the spotlight. A lot of Digimon releases have had to work harder for attention, so seeing Time Stranger get this kind of response, and then seeing a major expansion announced for 2027, feels like a real win for the series. It shows there's still strong interest in Digimon RPGs, it shows players will support these games when they're done well, and it shows the series still has a lot of life in it. That's exciting because it means this isn't just about one successful game. It could also be a sign that Digimon is in a better place than a lot of people might have expected when it comes to games going forward. And honestly, that's why I think this story matters more than just, hey, a DLC got announced. It's about what the announcement represents. It represents confidence in the game, it represents strong player support, and it represents the fact that Digimon Story, Time Stranger, seems to have done what every good game wants to do. It got people invested, it got people talking, and it got people wanting more. That's the clearest sign of success you can ask for. So yeah, I'm genuinely excited for this expansion. A large-scale 2027 expansion for a game that already has a 9.1 user score is exactly the kind of thing that makes me pay attention. It tells me the base game clearly worked for a lot of people, and now there's a good chance the developers are going to build on that in a big way. And more than anything, I think this is a good reminder not to judge a game only by the biggest review outlets. Check the user response, check the independent reviewers, check what people who actually spent time with the game are saying, because that usually tells you far more about whether a game is truly worth your time. And in this case, all of that points in a very positive direction. Digimon Story Time Stranger clearly connected with players, and now it's getting the chance to become even bigger. That's exciting for Digimon fans, that's exciting for monster collecting RPG fans, and it's going to be really interesting to see what this expansion ends up adding in 2027. So let me know what you think. Are you excited for the upcoming expansion? Do you trust user reviews more than critic reviews? And do you think Digimon Story Time Stranger is one of the strongest Digimon games in years? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.